Today, my featured guest is Vick Tipnes, and Vick was on our show a couple of years back. Actually, when I first started this podcast, Startup Nation, so it was probably over 3 years ago now. And Vick was one of my original guests on the show. He really dropped it with some powerful mindset shifting, reality type of language that really stretched my listeners back then to start believing in the dreams, believing in the visions that they have for themselves, and then actually start living those out. So a lot has happened in Vick's life since then. A lot has happened in my life since then, though. Vick has become a five-time Inc. 5000 entrepreneur. His business is Blackstone Medical Services. You can find him at blackstonemedicalservices.com. And Vick went from $78 on the verge of bankruptcy to $50 million in the past 8 years. $50 million. So this guy, he knows a lot about visualizing the future that you actually want and then creating it and making it reality. So we're going to talk about that today. So there's things inside of you, Startup Nation. There's lies that you have in your mind that you're believing that that dream you have for yourself is not possible. It's only for other people. It's for the people you see on social media, but not for you because your situation's differently or your problems are different. And I'm going to invite Vick to come in and blow up all those lies once and for all so that you actually take action and get the future that you want and that you deserve for yourself. So Vick Tipnes, welcome to your first 100K top 100 podcast on iTunes in entrepreneurship. Go ahead and just take about 30 seconds, fill in some of the gaps in that intro, would you?
Sure. So thanks for the kind words. I'm founder and CEO of Blackstone Medical Services. We're the largest provider of home sleep testing services in the United States. We have over 250 employees. We have offices in Tampa, Florida, Maryland, and Medellin, Colombia. And we essentially test for obstructive sleep apnea. That's what we do.
Fantastic. Now, Vick, take a minute, share something personal about you that very few people in your business life actually know.
I'm a pretty transparent guy. I don't actually think there's things that a lot of people don't know. Obviously, you follow me, you know me, and you see my social media. I'm pretty transparent. Mm-hmm. In terms of what I do and how I live. So I don't have anything that really comes to mind. But if I think of something, I'll definitely let you know.
All right, fair enough. Now, listen, you just wrote a book not too long ago. I was at your book launch. Amazing reception you did there. Break down what was the title of the book? Why'd you write the book? And how does my listener get their hands on it? Why should they actually read the book? Because you share like some personal, deep stuff in that book.
Yeah, I do. It was an Amazon bestseller, which I was really happy about. And I essentially decided to put down in paper kind of what I went through, because when I was going through all of the struggles that I went through, I remember that time making a promise to myself that if I were to come out of it, that I would do something that would help somebody else. And so for me, being very honest about what I went through and the solutions that I applied to things were somewhat anecdotal for people, right? Because there are a lot of people that are going through very similar situations, if not worse. And they don't have a lot of people that they can probably get good advice from, So I wrote Did You Sell Your Soul? Again, it was an Amazon bestseller, I think 3 days after we launched it. And it talks about the journey that I had as an entrepreneur and the lessons that I learned and different things that I went through.
Now, in that book, as I'm reading through it, and I read the whole book, by the way, and
thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for sharing that. You share a lot of tragedy, really. A lot of broken relationships, both personally and professionally. You shared how you process that pain, how you use that as fuel to really propel you to where you are in business. Can you talk to my listener a little bit about that? Because they're going through that right now, most likely. They have some people around them that may occur as toxic or well meaning, but kind of holding them back with their own small thinking.
Yeah. Well, a very important thing is who you hang around. I have to tell you that a few years ago, I decided to really kind of do a purge of the people that I was connected to that were really not for me. Not that they were maybe against me, but they just weren't really for me. They weren't there to root for me or to push me forward or to provide any value in my life. And I've experienced hanging out with a lot of friends like that, and even past relationships that I've had, where no matter you know what the relationship was like, that person just wasn't good for me. So when I decided to just make that change and said, okay, you know what, I only want to be surrounded by people that are really for me, that want me to do well, and that show it in their actions. That's a pretty big game changer. And there's a lot of people today, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners, that are surrounded by people that invalidate them, that nullify them, that make them think, smaller of themselves than they are, and a host of other things. And when you have that around you, I got to tell you, it's very, very difficult to succeed. It's very, very difficult to be successful when you have that type of environment around you.
I look at my own life in the past few years, and I also had to go through a purging process as well because I
Hmm.
realized I was contributing to people's lives, friends' lives, but it wasn't not being reciprocated. It was a very one sided relationship or friendship. And it sounds like you also have gone through that. Now, what is different on the other side? Because that takes something, right? Because so many people are scared to be lonely. They're scared of losing those friends. So they settle for the less than good for them friends because that's just who they have right now. What was it like? Did you have to go through a season of loneliness before you started to attract those people that were completely for you?
Yeah, sure. I wasn't afraid of being alone. So I was like, okay, you know what? If I went from 12 friends to three, I was happy with the three, but for me, and it might be different for your listeners, but for me, what really makes me happy is building companies and helping people and providing a great environment for people that they can work in and flourish and prosper. And not everybody is built to be an entrepreneur, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with working for somebody. Um, so for me, I wanted to create a great environment for people that weren't essentially entrepreneurs, that were not willing to take a lot of the risks and stuff, and create a great environment. And we've been very successful at that. My turnover in my company is less than 2% a year, and the national averages are 25 to 35%. And the reason that is because we really invest in people, and we create a great culture. And for me, building businesses and doing that is priority, over everything else. Because I know that if I'm not happy, you're not going to make anyone else happy. Uh, and sacrificing that for yourself is not productive to do.
Mm. So you speak a lot about company culture and creating a place where people they want to work, they want to give their best. Can you share
Mhm.
a, story of someone that works with you for you, where you gave them a bigger future than what they originally had planned for themselves? Do you have like a little success story you could share with us of someone?
Um, yeah, I mean, I have a lot. I have a tremendous amount of people that work for me that I think that I've given them a highly increased quality of life. There's people that came to me that, we're barely getting by, or doing fairly well, okay. And now their whole life has turned around, not only by the income. The income is just one part of it. I think that the other part of it is, providing a support system to people, a safe, stable environment where somebody can come to when they're having issues. It's not
Mm.
necessarily just about, the money. It's about your time. It's about your effort. It's your energy that you invest in other people, that comes back around.
Mm. So let's speak specifically about strategies and what my audience is missing right now. Or maybe it's not about the strategies as all, maybe at all. Maybe you want to push back on that and be like, hey, the strategies come and go. Like it's really a mindset thing. It's like, where are you at in your head? Where are you at in your heart? Like, what do you actually believe in? What do you want to say to my listener right now? Like, what's the most common thing you see that holds entrepreneurs from breaking past that 6-figure mark into the 7-figure mark, 8-figure mark, 9-figure mark?
I think a big part of it is strategy, but it's also, people's inability to be wrong. You have to be able to take a step back, and look at your life, and look at your business, and be able to objectively look at it and say, you know what, I should be more successful, or maybe not. But maybe the strategy I'm applying, or the data that I'm applying, or the knowledge I have is a little off, because we are a culmination of decisions that we make every single day. Well, we're making decisions based every day based off data that we have, that we think is right. So, you have to kind of look at it objectively and say, okay, if I'm not where I wanted to be in life, maybe there's something that I'm doing that's incorrect. And most people have a very difficult time with that.
Did you ever struggle with that yourself? And how did you get past it? Just that need to be right and not look bad.
I didn't necessarily have an issue with needing to be right. I actually was looking for the correct, application of things. There are people out there that have a strategy. If you want to have, a successful business, well, you got to go talk to and learn what very successful business people are doing. Because it's not an accident that somebody is successful and somebody isn't. There's a doingness to it. That person is doing something that the other person is not, right? So, you know I've always had this idea of being a student and saying, okay, how can I learn from people that are doing well, knowing that it's just not an accident. It's not just,
Mm.
you know something that happens. Usually, 90 a large portion, I'd say 95 to 99% of the time, the person that's in the position got there because of an ability that they have. They're able to do something that the other person's not, right? So for me, I'm always looking for that. So if something is not right in my business or my life, I find the correct data and use it.
So, in biblical terms, for all our Christian entrepreneurs out there, the Bible says, seek wise counsel, right? Go out and seek that counsel from people that know what they're doing. They have different strategies. They have strategies that works. So that's what you're talking about here. You and
Mhm.
I were just talking offline before we started the show that we both worked with, and I'm working with the same guy to coach us on Instagram. And he
Mhm.
has a proven formula that builds up audience and builds up authority on Instagram. And we both invested and hired that gentleman to teach us that strategy that works. Would that be a good
Mhm.
example?
Yeah, and there's people, I mean, that's in every aspect of life, right? There's people that are applying the correct application to their finances, and to their business, and to their relationships, personal relationships, boyfriend girlfriend relationships, husband wife relationships, right? There is an application, so it does exist.
Awesome. Okay, so take us into specifically what does it take, an entrepreneur to envision a future that is not there yet, to see so clearly their dream for the future in spite of their circumstances and the evidence around them? You've had to do this. I'm still in it myself. And I know personally, I struggle seeing clearly that picture time and time again. Sometimes it's clear, other times it's foggy as can be.
Mm-hmm.
How do you stay so clear on it? What guidance would you give my listener?
So it's a great question. This is probably the area that I excel in the best, and um, you know, where people end up and failing in this, and I'll give you something that's actually workable, right? So you have an ideal scene of what you want your life to be like, right? Whether it's your business, whether it's your personal life, your relationships with your friends, with your spouses, whatever, your family, everything, right? So the first step obviously is you have to really write down your ideal scene. Like, what does it look like? So a guy says, hey, you know what, I want to be married to a beautiful girl and I want to have a successful business. Okay, what does the girl look like? Does she have black hair? Does she have blonde hair? Is she 5'3"? Is she 6 foot? What's her background? Is she Republican? Is she Democrat? What's her faith? Does she believe in God? Does she not believe in God? The business. Okay, what's the revenue of the business? Is it a $10 million business? Is it a $2 million business? How many employees do you have? What does the culture look like? So you can see that just in those questions alone, probably 95% of people don't know the answers to those. They really don't, right? So if you don't know the answers to those questions, then step two is very difficult to apply, because step two is, let's say that we assume step one is done properly, right? You wrote down what the girl looks like, what the guy looks like. There's a girl that wants a certain guy, and he's this tall and he weighs this much, and this is his view on life, on religion, or whatever, right? Politics, blah blah blah. So if we take the example of the person that has figured out what they want, they've got their ideal scene, right? Is the ideal scene. It is ideal, called ideal for a reason, because it's the ideal scene. If at that point you have the ideal scene, the next step in the process is every day you have to make decisions about what is either furthering you to that ideal scene or bringing you back. And that's where most people fail, right there. Even if they have the ideal scene, they fail in being able to make decisions every day with the ideal scene in mind, right? And they compromise. They become reasonable, as I like to say. They become very reasonable. I'm probably one of the most unreasonable people you'll ever meet, because I'm not willing to be reasonable on what I want, right? So I've never compromised on that. Never. I used to a long time ago, when my life wasn't what I wanted it to be. And then I made the decision to say, you know what, this doesn't work for me because I'm not happy. I'm not happy. So I decided to say, hey, you know what, I'm just not willing to compromise on it. I'll give you a simple example. I wanted to marry a girl from Medellin, Colombia. Okay, that was my thing. And when I met my wife and she told me she was from Medellin, I told her, if you would have told me you were from Bogota, as beautiful as you are, I would have said, hey, it was great to know you. Let's be friends. And I wish you the best. I was willing to do that because I was not willing to compromise on the ideal scene. 99.999% of people would probably not make that call. Right? So there's a need of discipline that's involved in your ideal scene, that there are some things that are just not, you're not willing to compromise on, and look, I didn't compromise on that. I wanted someone from Medellin. I have an amazing wife, and now we have our company in Medellin, which is what I've always wanted. I'm going to be buying a home in Medellin, which is what I've always wanted. And that only happened because I was not willing to compromise and become reasonable about what I wanted.
Can you give us an example of certain decisions you made in your business that would have compromised that ideal scene that you had for your business?
Yeah, I mean, I have a ton, right? I have a ton.
Mhm.
Probably the biggest one was I had a COO, that was, he was a good guy, but he was an ineffective manager, and he was a personal friend of mine. And my business was still growing. We were doing okay. We weren't doing great. This was 3-4 years ago. Um, and I was not, again, back to ideal scene, I was not willing to compromise. So I had to make the tough decision to part ways, to remove him, and all of that. And it was very difficult. It was a lot to confront. But after I made that move, our business quadrupled. It quadrupled, because the culture was just not where I wanted it to be, and I was not willing to compromise on that. And so I've made a ton of decisions like that. I've gotten rid of people that were against the ideal scene of what I wanted in my life, and I just said, you know what? Not that I hate them, but I just, hey, look, it doesn't make sense. There's no point. There's no point for us to be connected if you're not really for me, and that's okay. There's 7 billion people on the planet. I can find another friend.
So, Vic, when you make these decisions to bring yourself closer to your ideal scene,
Mm.
before you see the results start to come in, we go through this stage of buyer's remorse. We go through this stage of self doubt, this stage of, did I make the right decision? Is it going to work out, or did I just screw everything up by removing that person that I needed to run the operations? What do
Mhm.
you do during that in between time of self doubt? That's just part of the human condition, to really push through and stay committed to that ideal scene. And then you start to see those results show up that validate and confirm, yes, that
Mhm.
was the right decision.
I mean, you have to remind yourself of your purpose. What are you trying to do? So for me, when I made that decision, for example, to get rid of my COO, okay, what was my purpose? My purpose is that I want to build a very successful company, that I want to, be able to help a lot of people, to be able to support my church, my community, my whatever, right? Everyone has these ideas. So what happens is you have to say, okay, what is my purpose, right? What am I trying to accomplish here? And you have to just push through it. If you know that you made a decision objectively, like I knew this guy was not the right fit, even if I knew personally that personally he was a good guy or whatever, I just knew business wise he was an inefficient manager. So what was the worst case that was going to happen? What was the worst thing that happened? If I came into work one day and everything went to shit, then maybe I made the wrong decision. Okay, fine, we make wrong decisions. But every day, I mean, look, if every day I'm willing to make decisions to further to the ideal scene, I only have to be 51% right. I'm gonna make mistakes. You're gonna make mistakes. But shit, if I'm 51% right, I'm gonna end up winning.
Startup Nation, I hope you're taking notes right now with Vic, because he's really laying out a very powerful success formula for your business, to really create that, do that first step of creating with specificity that ideal scene for your business, for your life. What does it actually look like, all the way down to the details of like, color selection for your office space, once you get there to that large office that you're going to create for yourself, if that's part of it, or what type of house you're going to build in what part of the world, etc., all the way down to the type of wood you're going to use, right?
Mhm.
That kind of specificity allows your mind to truly believe that it's a real goal and to go out and get it, and to go to work at finding those resources and attracting those people that will bring you closer to that. So, Vic, thank you for walking us through that. Those are two very common but unanswered questions that I think you delivered very clear answers to, and they were simple answers. So it gives us a nice, powerful roadmap to really go get our own ideal scenes. What do you want to say to Startup Nation right now that we haven't addressed, uh, that you want to just communicate to them for their own ideal scenes, whatever that may be?
I think it's the same message really. It's you can have what you want in life if you're willing to be courageous and confront things and not compromise and be reasonable. I see a lot of people, they lose out because they're reasonable about things. They accept things that happen to them that are bad, and they think, oh, the person didn't mean it or this or that and all this stuff. And that's all kind of, intertwined into being reasonable, right? So I think you have to, I think you have to really, you know, um, be unreasonable and really demand out of life what you want, and you'd be surprised how far you get.
I think you just gave permission to my audience that it is possible for them to create this ideal scene for their life.
Hmm.
It is possible for them to go get it. And the only thing stopping them really is a lack of clarity on their ideal scene. And then the discipline to only say yes to things that move them closer to it.
Yeah, and the other thing, from a business aspect, if you're running into roadblocks and you're not getting the solution or the outcome that you want, you have the wrong solution. You just got to find the right solution. There's a solution to everything. I mean, there's an answer to everything. So, I think that if you're banging your head against the wall and you're not finding the solution, you need to ask around a little bit more.
Yeah, somebody's got that solution you're looking for. That's the bottom line
Somebody's
there.
figured it out.
Somebody's figured it out. Yeah. All right, Vic. We're speaking with Vick Tipnes. He's the CEO, founder of Blackstone Medical Services. They're doing over 50 million a year, five-time Inc. 5000 company, and Vic's crushing it. You can find him on social media. On IG, he's got 1.7 million followers, people that are actively saying, "Hey, Vic, how do I do what you did? How do I do it for my life?" And he's a very inspiring individual. He's also very humble. I know him personally. We've been friends for I don't know how many years now, Vic. Quite some time though.
It's
And
some time. Yeah.
yeah, here in Tampa, Florida. And one thing about Vic, even though he has all the fancy toys and cars and Lambos and all that jazz, he occurs as one of the most humble people you'll meet. And I acknowledge you for that, Vic. That's not to pump up your
Thank you.
tires. That's just to say what's so, for real. So, Vic, welcome to my favorite part of the show. Welcome to the hustle round. I'm going to ask you 10 quick fire questions. You'll have about 3 seconds to answer each. Don't overthink it. It's just for fun. Are you ready, sir?
Yep.
What's your favorite thing about being an entrepreneur out on your own, just taking on the risk and creating your ideal scene and going for it?
Just the freedom to create.
Freedom to create. What's your
Yeah.
least favorite thing?
Least favorite thing, paying taxes.
Yeah. What are you most afraid of?
Not reaching my potential.
Yeah, I get that. I believe we're all struggling with something at any given moment of our life. It's just part of the human condition. What are you currently struggling with right now, either professionally or personally?
Honestly, nothing.
That's a good place to
Honestly,
be,
nothing.
right?
It's a good place to be.
Now,
Honestly, nothing.
some could argue, well, does that mean you're growing if there's no struggle, if there's no, friction?
Well, struggle means that there's no solution, right? You struggle
Ah,
with things that you have no solution for. When you have a solution, it's not really a struggle. So I don't find myself struggling with things. I doesn't mean to say I don't have challenges, but I don't have anything that keeps me up at night or that
hmm.
I'm personally challenged with. No.
Based on your definition of the word struggle, I may have to change my question, sir. Thanks for that. What did you spend way too much time doing this past year?
What did I spend too much? Well, I love to work, so I would probably say that I spent a lot of time working, but I wouldn't think of that as a negative thing for me. I really enjoy what I do.
If you don't mind me asking, about how many hours per week do you work?
Oh, at least 80 hours, at least
God
80 to
bless
90
you,
hours a
man.
week.
And you
Yeah.
thrive on that. You enjoy that.
Yeah, it was one of my things when I met my wife. I said, look, I love to work, and I never want to be in a situation where you tell me I work too much. And she's never told me that. She's never told me that. She understands that that's what I love to do, and she understands that if I don't do that, that I'm not a happy person. You gotta feed yourself so you can feed others, right? But I love to work. I'm going from, I'm up usually 5:45, 6 in the morning, and I'm going until 9, 10 o'clock at night. It's always going.
Question to you: how do you stay refreshed, recharged, replenished, and not burn out? Because that kind of work life typically burns people out, right?
I don't necessarily believe in burnout. I think
Okay.
it's a bit of a um, let me see. Can you hear me okay?
And
All right. I don't necessarily think there is no such thing as burnout. Typically when you get burned out, it's usually because you've lost your purpose. So you're kind of just out of gas, right? Because you're just
mhm.
like, ugh, I've lost my purpose. I don't know what I'm doing anymore, and there's no fuel there. So when you find yourself in a position where you do feel this kind of burnout feeling, you have to remind yourself what your purpose is. My purpose, for example, is I want to create over $1 billion worth of wealth and create generational wealth, right?
Mhm.
So imagine my purpose when I get up in the morning. It doesn't matter how many cars I have, right? It's like, okay, my purpose is here. It's a big purpose, right? It's to help and influence, millions of people and millions of entrepreneurs across the world and all that stuff. So, when your purpose is big enough, it is very hard to get burned out or impossible to get burned out because you're willing to expend the energy to get to where you need to go.
What I just took from what you said is actually, I think, a very powerful truth for you, Startup Nation, is that what I'm hearing Vic say is burnout is not a lack of energy, it's a lack of purpose.
Mhm.
Is that about right, Vic?
You're spot on.
Yeah, that's powerful even for me to hear because I look at all the times in my past when I felt burnt out, working
Hmm.
110 hours a week, and I'm like, ah, man, I don't even know. But it was actually just a lack of purpose. I had lost my purpose, and
Yeah, it's a huge thing. You lose your purpose, you lose your gas, right? The best way to reignite that energy is to pour gas on coals, right? You're like, okay, what am I doing again? What is the focus? What is the purpose again? Oh, the purpose is to help people. The purpose is to create generational wealth for my family. The purpose is to provide a certain lifestyle for my loved ones and to provide abundance. So when I get up in the morning, and this happens to people when they become, they hit a certain level of success,
mhm.
they lose their purpose, and so they get bored, they get depressed,
because they're like, well, I no longer have to work to pay rent or my mortgage or my house or my this or my that. And that's just the wrong way to think about it, right? The right way to think about it is, okay, what's your purpose, right? And remind yourself of the purpose. And I do that a lot with my wife and my friends, and we talk a lot about, okay, what is our purpose? What are we trying to do? And just having the conversation creates an increase in energy.
Yeah, I get that. Thank you for spending some time on that. I think that's powerful. What secret fear do you have about people?
I don't have a secret fear about people. I love people. I think people are great. I think, all shapes and sizes and colors. And as an entrepreneur, you have to really love people, because the only reason I am where I am is because I have a lot of people around me that are very smart, very hardworking, and are willing to buy into the purpose, right? So I think that you have to naturally be a people person to be an entrepreneur.
I agree with that. What do you wish you had learned sooner in business?
What I had wished I had learned sooner in business is how to direct the energy of money. It's a very, very important thing. And what I mean by that is you have to direct the energy that is, money is an energy, right? It comes in and it goes to somebody else, and it's constantly transferable, right?
Mm-hmm.
So directing the energy is being able to really control your money in your cash to where you know that a certain amount is going into certain things every single day or week. It kind of like expensing your profit, right? If you don't expense your profit, you're not going to have any money.
Mm-hmm. So you almost have like little profit buckets that each go to different things, right?
Well, if I know,
right?
let's say you have a cookie store, right? And you generate $10,000 a week in revenue in your cookie store. And you know that based on your numbers that you should have $2,000 in profit every week, right? Now, what happens is you have an entrepreneur that's running their cookie store. They do the 10,000 every week, but the 2,000 gets spent on something else, right? So there's a general rule of thumb: an organization always spends more money than it makes, always. So what you have to do is you have to expense the profit. So if you know that your cookie store generates $2,000 a week, on every Friday, you have your bank withdraw $2,000. It is gone. It ain't there anymore.
So you can't use it anywhere else. You can't expense it anywhere else in the business.
Yeah, it's taken out of the business account into another completely different account. Now, from that account, you can take that money and invest it. You can do other things with it. But every week, you're taking the money out of the business. You're expensing your profit.
Mm-hmm.
And what that does psychologically is it gets you to start thinking like, okay, now your cookie store is doing 13,000 a week. So then you bump up the 2,000 to 2,250 or 2,500, and you consistently increase that number. And what that does is, a business is a living, breathing organism, right? It's a live thing. So what you're doing is you're creating demand on your business. You now know every week 2,000 is coming out of your bank account. So think about what that does to you mentally. It's like, shit, I got to get that 10 grand in that bank this week, right?
Yeah, it stretches you.
It stretches you. And so what you'll find is over time, you'll go from 2,000 a week to 8,000 a week.
Profit being just pulled right out and then
just
being
gone,
redirected.
Like you never had it.
Yep.
Like you never had it. And I really wish that I had learned that earlier in my career. But I highly, highly suggest any entrepreneur that has a business, I don't care if it's $100 a week, you pull it out. It's an automatic withdrawal. You don't even think about it. Friday end of day, boom, that $100 is gone. and then you got to give yourself a plan. Say, okay, in the next quarter, I got to get it to 150. I got to get it to 200. I got to get it to 500. I got to get to 1,000, and so on and so forth. And you'll be surprised how quickly it adds up.
I'm thinking out loud. It's almost like you treat your profit as your most valued employee, and you got to cut a check to that employee every single week, and they're getting paid if you want them to stay or increase and do more.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of successful entrepreneurs talk about that. They talk about pay yourself first, and I'm a big believer in that. You have to pay yourself first. It doesn't mean that you don't pay your employees, but what it means is you pull out yours first.
Yep. And
then again, you do the math. If you know that it costs you, $6,000 to run your cookie business, you're pulling out enough to run your business. But you're pulling out your profit equally, because you are the risk taker. You are the one that has the most to lose. And if you don't expense your profit, it ends up getting spent on other stupid stuff.
Yeah, it does, for sure. What's a new habit you want to create, Vic?
New habit that I want to create. Nothing comes to mind, and I'll tell you why. I'm a very habit-driven person. Every like somebody wanted to assassinate me, it'd be very easy. But it's true. I mean, I have security now, but yeah, it would be easy because I'm a creature of habit.
I know the coffee shop you go to about the same time. Yeah. That's what you mean. Got it.
I'm a creature of habit.
That's so funny. What's a bad habit you want to break? Is there anything in there?
Chocolate. Love
chocolate. A little chocolate. All right. Pick 3 words to describe who you are now.
Logical, generous, and kind.
I see that about you. Yeah. Pick 3 words to describe who you were your first year in this business.
Anxious, hungry, and not as confident.
Yeah. And Vic, last question. If you could come back to life after you died, look your family and friends, your wife in the eyes, and give them only one piece of advice about everything, life, business, relationships, all of it, what would you say to them?
I would say that life is a game, and energy never dies. So you're gonna repeat this again, and play to win.
Play to win, Startup Nation. Any final wisdom? What's the one thing you want my listener to know about making their first 6 figures, their first 100K in the next 12 months?
That you can do it. And once you do it, you need to set another goal for yourself. You need to constantly be creating momentum and creating goals. I constantly do that. I'm like, okay, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? And that's momentum. And momentum is a very important part of business and life. You want to have momentum going all the time. I'm big on that. So I highly encourage people to have momentum.
It's awesome. And Vic, where can Startup Nation get in touch with you? What do you got for them? Where they pick up your book? What do you got?
Books on Amazon. Did You Sell Your Soul? Again, Amazon bestseller. And, obviously I'm on Instagram, on Facebook. My handle is my name at Vick Tipnes. Feel free to message me anytime. I try to get to my messages quickly. I always will get a response to you, but obviously I get bombarded with messages on social media, but I try to respond to every single one.
Vic, thank you so much for taking the time today to be on your first 100K. Thank you for the wisdom, the value you brought to my audience. And I wish you God's love, peace, and joy in your life, sir.
Thank you, man. You too.